What is going on, everyone, and welcome to the Philly Frenzy Podcast. I'm your host, Matt. I can't say as always, because this is the first time in like 3 years we're doing a podcast, but I'm your host, Matt. I'm here with my buddy, Rob. Here we go. What's going on, Rob? We're doing a little mock draft today.
I'm excited, man. First podcast in a while, like you said. Excited for us to be back at it, and what a way to kick it off with one of my favorite things to do for the entire year. The start of football season, the NFL draft.
Yeah, so we're gonna something we did last year was our mock draft. Someone's a little bit more excited than we are, I can see.
Oh Lord!
You excited for the number one pick? All right, so what
Too
we're
bad
gonna
you
do?
don't got it.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is what we did last year, where we take one team gets odds, or one guy gets odds, one guy gets evens. For the sake of our teams, I'm going to take the evens. Rob is going to take the odds. So Rob will be on the clock as soon as I get done talking here with number one pick for the Carolina Panthers, and I'm pretty sure we all know where he's going. So without further ado, Rob, you are on the clock with the Carolina Panthers.
Do. Where's my sound effect, man? The pick is on the clock. The pick is in. The Carolina Panthers select quarterback Bryce Young, Alabama. I think he's the most pro-ready guy. He was a playmaker at the college level. He is undersized, but he's a consummate professional, and I just think he's the most surefire thing out of the draft. He might not end up the best guy, but he's definitely going to start it, and I think that's where Carolina's going.
I can't disagree with you more. I think that he is the right choice for that. I'm pretty sure my daughter is enjoying the pick as well. So Bryce Young is officially a Carolina Panther in our mock draft. With the number 2 pick, I'm on the clock with the Houston Texans. Now, Rob, we had a little bit of a discussion before we got on today, seeing where we were thinking about going. I know that there's been a lot of reports that possibly Will Levis would end up going number 1. Well, with you taking Bryce Young, I believe that the Houston Texans are going to take the best available player on this board, which is linebacker Will Anderson Jr. out of Alabama. This man is a freak of nature. They have him projected with a comparable of Derek Thomas and DeMarcus Ware. I personally don't think he's that high, but I mean, if we're going to get a guy like that into the league, I'm a little excited for it. Rob, do you have any rebuttal with that pick? No rebuttal? We're good? Alright, we're good. Alright, so moving on. So the first 2 picks we had, Bryce Young going 1, Will Anderson going 2. Probably no surprise to anybody that's listening to this. With the 3rd pick now, we do have the Arizona Cardinals on the...
And the Arizona Cardinals are going to make a trade here because their only guy they wanted in the top end of this draft, Will Anderson, just got taken.
Girl, you were making this very difficult to do. I don't understand how people do this with kids. Alright, with the 3rd pick, the Arizona Cardinals will trade the pick to the New England Patriots. And the Arizona Cardinals will receive, in return, the number 14 pick this year, a 1st-round pick next year, a 3rd-round pick this year, and Jabril Peppers. So Arizona's getting a haul. New England's getting to move up. New England is then going to draft, who held the 14th pick becomes my pick, and we are going to take quarterback out of Kentucky, Will Levis. Honestly, I think he's the most ready quarterback out of the ones in this draft class. I believe that he's going to fit exactly what Bill Belichick wants to do. I'm sorry, we all know how I felt about Mac Jones in the past, but I think Mac time is done. He could be on his way out, as well as Trey Lance. Off topic real quick, you're talking about Mac Jones and Trey Lance both losing their jobs. 2 guys that were in the same draft class who could both potentially be on new teams next year.
Yeah, he might lose his job to Sam Darnold over there now, too.
So New
Now this
England.
is this might be my toughest pick coming up here, man.
So New England
He's killing me.
at 3.
New England at 3 takes Will Levis off the board.
So now I'm back on the board here at 4 with the Indianapolis
Yes,
Colts. The Colts are missing a big piece here at the quarterback position. Looking at what is left on the board, there's no way Indianapolis takes anything besides this guy. Personally, who I think is the best quarterback in this draft, not ready, but the best quarterback in this draft is C.J. Stroud, quarterback at Ohio State. C.J. Stroud has showed me nothing to be worried about when it comes to playing on Sundays or Mondays or Thursdays, whenever they decide to play their games. I think Indianapolis is getting the bona fide Pro Bowler quarterback that they've been looking for. This quarterback draft class isn't as deep as it was last year, 2 years ago, but I believe that these 3 guys are at a higher level, and then there is a big drop off. So Indianapolis does indeed get their quarterback, C.J. Stroud.
I personally like the pick, though I will mention that I've heard a lot of rumors surrounding the Colts loving Anthony Richardson. But now I'm on the clock at Seattle. This is a tougher pick for me, but I think they desperately need to get more production out of their pass rush. And the guy I think they're going to look at, because he's the next prototypical edge rusher in this draft, behind the already drafted Will Anderson, is Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. I think he has incredible size. Even for at the NFL level, he has excellent length. He is probably going to have a length advantage even over most tackles he faces in the NFL. And he's a guy that they can also move inside and outside. So the versatility makes him, I think, the guy that Pete Carroll would love to have on his defense.
Tyree Wilson is a guy that I have actually projected as 5 as well. So I like the pick. I think Tyree Wilson has all the intangibles to be the next guy. So following suit here, someone else is more excited than I am about this pick. So with the 6th pick, the Detroit Lions are going to take defensive tackle Jalen Carter out of Georgia.
Yep.
If there's any head coach that could get him on the right path with everything going on outside of football, and then hearing that he didn't want to practice, having issues, not being motored all the time, Jalen Carter is going to come into this team in Detroit, and he's going to play at a smaller market in a sense compared to other teams that could have drafted him, and he's going to be able to line up right next to Aiden Hutchinson. You talk about a line, like just them two, like a front 4, just putting them two as your base. I mean, Detroit just got a hell of a lot stronger on that defensive line.
I think Jalen Carter is the number 1 or number 2 best talent possibly in this draft. The off-the-field stuff obviously worries people, which is why he did not go in our top 5, and I do not see him going in the top 5. But his talent's so high that I can't see him getting outside of the top 10, so I think it's a good pick. Now, I'm on the board here at 7 with my personal favorite team, the Oakland Raiders, and if the real NFL draft shakes out like this one has so far, we will be very, very happy to select cornerback out of the University of Oregon, Christian Gonzalez. Corner is 100% the Raiders' biggest need going into this draft. I don't care what anybody says online. Our corners absolutely stink. Christian Gonzalez was an absolute beast in college. He has great size, great length, speed. Watching film, he has good hip movement. His ball skills are there. So I know a lot of people are real high on Devin Witherspoon, and I am too, but I think Christian Gonzalez is the guy.
All right, so I'm going to follow suit and play the same exact thing you're doing here at cornerback, but with the Atlanta Falcons, I'm going to draft Devin Witherspoon, who in some people's eyes, like you were saying, is number one. Christian Gonzalez is number two. But I believe Devin Witherspoon is going to be able to give A.J. Terrell the opposite side of the corner that Atlanta's desperately needed. And then you're going to have Jesse Bates over the top. So you adding a young corner to go with A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates, and then the way that they've built this front seven, this Atlanta defense, you getting a guy who, quote unquote, is the best corner in this draft, could go a long way.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick for Atlanta. Their secondary could be, just devastatingly hard to throw against if Witherspoon can become what people think he can become. So I think it's a good pick. I'm up here 9 with the Chicago Bears, with the pick that they acquired in the trade with Carolina, where they moved back. I believe they moved back because they believe in their quarterback. They've gotten him some receiver help over the last season and a half. So I think they're going to get him a little more help and get the guy I believe is the best offensive tackle in this draft, and that is Paris Johnson out of Ohio State. Paris Johnson is a big boy, 6'6", 310. His pass blocking for Ohio State was phenomenal, and he was facing very good pass rushers in his conference and with their schedule. So I think, to me, his size, the measurables, and his film lead him to be the number one offensive tackle on the board, and that's the biggest need for Chicago, in my opinion.
I agree. You could have gone with an inside guy like Peter Skoronski, but I believe getting that guy that's going to be able to be an edge protector for Justin Fields is going to allow him to take that step further into his career. Kind of hope the trajectory of this player in Fields is Chicago wants him to take that step like Jalen Hurts did, and they're doing everything in their power to make sure that they're kind of mimicking that team in a sense where they're going to get weapons. They're building a strong offensive line. That's what Paris Johnson gives you, is a strong tackle for 10, 15 years that allows him to grow with Justin Fields. So I really do like this pick. I think this is the right direction if you're Chicago. Here at pick 10, I do get the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I'm bouncing all over the place. I told you before the draft, before this mock draft, that I might move back. I might sit here and take the pick. The big guy the big guy on my board was Jalen Carter. I do have another man on my board, but I think I'm going to make a trade here. Well, I'm going to offer you the trade and then see what happens here. So, with the number 10 pick, there's a quarterback on the board that I know a team later on in the first round is interested in. Would you be, as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, willing to part ways with the number 19 pick and Devin White, who is on the last year of his deal, for the number 10 pick?
I think if that's all that we're asking for, that Tampa Bay would definitely probably jump up. I know that they've come out and said they're comfortable starting Kyle Trask, but I just find that very hard to believe. So I will agree the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to move on to the clock and take another Florida quarterback, but one with possibly the highest upside in this entire draft, and that's Anthony Richardson.
My bad. I'm sorry, trying to make sure that I got all this written down before I get lost here. So, Anthony Richardson, to me, I do agree with you, does have the highest upside. He does give you a bunch of intangibles that you look for in a quarterback nowadays. He has everything with his legs and with his arm. Not only that, he's very smart. If Tampa Bay wanted to mold this guy, they could. Because, like you said, they do have Kyle Trask. So if they allowed Trask, say they gave Trask the opportunity to go out this year, and then it doesn't work out, then they have Anthony Richardson in the back pocket. Yes, they did move up, but what did it cost them? A guy that they're not going to sign in the offseason?
Yeah, Devin White's already come out and said he's not interested in staying with the team after this year, I believe. I could be wrong on that. So, and I don't blame him because the roster's kind of bad with no quarterback, and he's a good player that a lot of teams are going to want to pay a lot of money for. So I would move him to move up and possibly get a guy who, if you could rein in some of his throwing mechanics and teach him how to throw a better ball, Anthony Richardson can be a huge weapon in the NFL.
Now you're sitting here at pick 11. This is you with the Tennessee Titans.
So, the Titans have one just absolutely glaring need, and it is their entire abysmal offensive line. So I'm going best offensive lineman on the board, and that is Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. He's played tackle and guard in college. I think his build with his shorter arms is better for the guard position, but luckily for Tennessee, they need everything. And in my opinion, they're getting possibly the best lineman in the draft. I just don't know that he can play tackle at the NFL level with such a reach disadvantage.
With Skoronski, that's a guy that the Eagles were looking at, according to a bunch of mock drafts, to come fill in for Isaac Seumalo, because people don't think that Cam Jurgens is going to be the answer at guard, but I have no interest in him. But he is going to make a good guard in this league. I just feel like there's somebody down the line who's a little bit better that I'd rather not waste a top 15 pick on. But the Titans do have glaring holes on that offensive line. So with the number 12 pick, I do get Houston again. Now, I did draft Will Anderson in the first round, or with number 2 pick. Right.
You did?
There's no quarterback on the board. I'm going to do something that DeMeco Ryans would be so excited about. I'm going to draft possibly the new Micah Parsons. Give me Nolan Smith fucking put with Will Anderson. I knew it. You are going to give me a fucking combination of Will Anderson on one side and Nolan Smith on the other. This defensive front could be one of the scariest defensive fronts the NFL has possibly ever seen.
Yeah, I know I picked Tyree Wilson at 5 for Seattle, but Tyree Wilson is the third-ranked pass edge rusher on my board. I have Nolan Smith as the second edge rusher on my board. I just think with Seattle's system, they need a little bit more of the prototypical defensive end edge rusher. And Nolan Smith is going to have to play more of a linebacker type edge rusher, like as we just compared him to Micah Parsons. But I think it's if Houston can come out of this first round like this, their entire defense could look completely different next year.
So now after the New England trade that we had earlier in the first round, you are going to be taking 3 choices here. You have the Packers, who just moved up. You have the Packers that just recently moved up with the New York Jets. You have the New England, or you have the Arizona Cardinals, who have dropped back to this spot, and then it'll be followed by the Jets, who moved down 2 spots.
Yes, sir. So starting off here, we're at 13. I got Green Bay. Their biggest needs to me are edge rusher, safety, and tight end. But I think they really want/need to see what they have in their young quarterback that they're going with this year. So they're going to go ahead and grab him another weapon to go with his young receivers, and that's going to be Dalton Kincaid, tight end out of Utah. He is he's a little smaller, not the best pass blocker, but he is serviceable as a blocker. But he has excellent route running. He was super productive in college for Utah as a tight end in that system, and he gives me my comp for him would be like a more polished Evan Ingram coming out of college. And we all saw what Evan Ingram can do this year with a good quarterback, so I think Kincaid could be a great weapon for them to add to their young QB.
You just caught me way off guard because I put down Jackson Smith. As soon as you said, go get him a weapon. I like the pick, though.
I did, but see, they drafted 2 good wide receivers last year.
They did do that.
Who showed who showed flashes as soon as their quarterback decided he wanted to play with them. So now I'm sitting here at 14, and I got the team that traded back, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. They can use a corner. They can use interior line. They can use a pass rusher. I think they are going to take a interior lineman here or a pass rusher, and I think they're going to prioritize pass rusher with losing J.J. Watt. So give me Lucas Van Ness from Iowa.
There's a story out on Lucas Van Ness that is very interesting. That the Eagles did an NFL draft day with him. They gave him a playbook and taped a $100 bill to the back of it, and this man took the $100 bill and handed back the playbook. I don't know how true it is, but if that's the case, that could be one of the reasons why he did not go 10th here to Philadelphia. But I like this pick. I do get what you're saying with grabbing Lucas Van Ness to replace J.J. Watt. They do still have younger pieces around Van Ness to definitely insert him into the defense, and he's going to be able to grow with Jonathan Gannon. The one thing with him getting put into a system like Jonathan Gannon's is he's going to tell you to pin your ears back and go get the quarterback, and that's one thing that Van Ness has shown that he could do in the past. The one thing that he does struggle against is the rush. So when teams are running towards his side, he does end up struggling, but him being under Gannon, pinning your ears back, going to get the quarterback, that is something that he ends up thriving in. So I'm interested to see how he's going to fit at the NFL level now. And then at 15, you're up with the New York Jets. And just check on your mic, Rob, because I might have lost you here. But while we're waiting on Rob, we'll do a quick run through of what we have through 14. We have Carolina taking Bryce Young. Number 2, we have Houston going with Will Anderson Jr. At pick 3, we have Arizona trading a pick to New England for multiple draft picks, and New England taking Will Levis. At 4, Indianapolis takes C.J. Stroud. 5, we see Tyree Wilson go to Seattle. Jalen Carter ends up going to Detroit. At 6, 7, we see the Oakland Las Vegas Raiders drafting Christian Gonzalez, cornerback out of Oregon. At 8, Atlanta follows suit and drafts cornerback out of Illinois' Devin Witherspoon. At 9, Chicago goes and gets their quarterback a little bit of a protector, and big boy Paris Johnson out of Ohio State. At 10, the Philadelphia Eagles trade their pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for Devin White. And then the Buccaneers then draft quarterback Anthony Richardson out of Florida. At 11, the Tennessee Titans go and get a glaring hole on their offensive line in guard/tackle Peter Skoronsky out of Northwestern. If his arms were a little bit longer, he might be a top 10 pick, and he probably would be the best tackle in this draft. So we'll see how he ends up working out at guard with the Tennessee Titans. At 12, we had Houston taking Nolan Smith to pair with Will Anderson Jr.
And
at 13, we had Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah, correct?
Yes, sir.
Tight end out of Utah getting drafted to the Green Bay Packers. And then Luke Van Ness rounds out top 14, getting drafted to replace J.J. Watt in the new Jonathan Gannon-looked defense in Arizona. So at 15, the New York Jets are on the clock, sir.
At 15, the New York Jets are on the clock. They've got 3 positions of need. I think they could use a tight end. I think they could use a safety, and I think they could use an offensive tackle. I think that's their 3 biggest needs. Luckily for them, one of I believe probably the top 20-ish prospects in this draft is still on the board at one of those position needs, and that is offensive tackle Broderick Jones out of Georgia. He is an absolute bully. I don't see anybody plowing him around even at the NFL level. You're going to have to go around him. And playing for Georgia in the SEC, obviously his level of competition was stiff, so I think he's going to be NFL ready day one.
I'm going to ask you a question. Did you see my mock draft? Because this is exactly where I had Broderick Jones going. I absolutely love this pick. I believe that it gives Aaron Rodgers the sense
That's
of
exactly why
protection.
they're doing it.
You're going to go get a young
exactly
guy that's going to be on the opposite side of Beckham, who's already shown that he could play in this league.
And they got Vera Tucker at guard.
They also have Vera Tucker on guard.
Solid offensive line if they add Broderick Jones.
So this offensive line looks a lot better than it did in the last 5 years. And you got a hell of a quarterback sent back there. So, I mean, I love this pick. I
think they're already all in on Rodgers. Why not go even more?
Going from the Jets, we're now going to Washington, who could possibly be under new ownership. Not really sure what's going on there. There's a couple holes here. There's been chatter that they might end up trading one of their ends. I don't think that happens on draft night, at least in night one. Chase Young hasn't been that great because he's off the field, but when he is on the field, he's a very good player. He's just had a lot of injuries. And you look at Montez Sweat, you could say the same thing. Both these guys are very good. They're both going to get paid, and they're both coming up on contracts. At 16, though, I'm not going to go with a defensive lineman after talking it up. At 16, I'm going to go and get cornerback Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. I had to think about that one for a second, but I'm going to go Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. I think if he would have been in the draft last year, he might have been a little bit higher. I think this year it hurt him a little bit spot-wise, but he is a very solid cornerback here at 16 for Washington.
He is. He started since he was a freshman, so that says something, especially down in that conference where defensive players are constantly coming out. He's a little skinny, but he doesn't tend to play like that to me. I don't know. He has, 14 picks in his career in college, so
he's productive
at. Yeah, I think he's something that Ron Rivera would have been interested in, but too bad. That's a good pick at corner, though. 17, you got Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh could also use offensive tackle. They could also use a corner. And they could use a defensive tackle. Now, I don't know that there's any defensive tackles outside of Jalen Carter that I'm going for at that particular point in the draft.
Before you make this pick, has his father worn this color before?
Well, I don't know yet. Because they really do need some interior line help. And there's a hometown boy that plays interior line. And they seem to like to pick hometown players. So I think I'm going to go Kalaje Cansey from Pittsburgh, defensive tackle. He can also get to the quarterback. He's a little bit undersized, height-wise is 6 foot, but he is 280. And I think that if anybody's going to get that kid opportunities to rush the passer up the middle, that's Mike Tomlin all day.
I like the pick. I do like that pick. That's a very solid pick. Now I'm on the board here for 3. I got 18, 19, 20. So 18, we have the Detroit Lions. Now this is interesting because I had them take Jalen Carter. Now I could go get myself exactly what I think I want to go get myself, and I'm not even going to look at anything else because I believe This kid is a fucking stud. And we're going to, at pick 18, the Detroit Lions are going to draft cornerback Kelee Ringo out of Georgia. You're going to go get me a stud, baby. Okay, you're going to add him with that pick of Jalen Carter. I'm getting 2 Georgia boys here in Detroit. Kelee Ringo is 6'2". I don't even know what his weight is. I just know that he is an absolute dog. He plays the position the way they play it in the NFL, not in college. This man is going to transition very well. I'm actually shooting myself in the foot in a sense because I am sitting here at 19 with the Eagles, and it wouldn't have hurt to take in Kelee Ringo there. But I think that he fits well with Detroit and what Dan Campbell's trying to do and get physical. And Ringo is going to be a corner that does get physical with you.
Absolutely.
So I feel like this is the right choice for the Detroit Lions.
I like it.
All right.
I think Kelee Ringo's a great corner. I hope he can stay on the field.
Now, if you would have told me before this draft that even after trading down 9 picks and receiving Devin White, that I am going to still get running back out of Texas, Bijan Robinson in Philadelphia,
No.
I would have told you were lying. And honestly, even with them,
You guys just got Derrick Henry. You could have left my man alone.
Even if he ends up falling to 19, so in real life, there's a very good chance he does fall to 19. I didn't do this just because I'm an Eagles fan and I want Bijan Robinson, I want Devin White, I want this guy, I want that guy. There's a very good chance if there is no trades between 10 and 19 and Philadelphia was to move down, that Bijan Robinson would be there. And if you are Howie Roseman and you move down 9 spots and you're looking at this board now, the best available player in this draft, who's been available since pick number 1, is Bijan Robinson. You're drafting Bijan Robinson at 19. I'm sending in the offer or the pick here.
I'm just upset because I wanted him, but Bijan Robinson is possibly the best player in this draft. Period. He has elite speed. He can break tackles. He broke a ton of tackles this year. He can run inside, outside. He can catch passes out of the backfield. He's all around phenomenal. He's got good size. If Philadelphia can move back and get that kid and have him go back, be back up Derrick Henry, their backfield is absolutely deadly and will be deadly for a long time with that kid.
At pick 20, I do have the Seattle Seahawks.
As a reminder, earlier in the draft at 5, they took Mr. Wilson, defensive end.
I thought about possibly going inside here for Seattle, adding another defensive line piece. Thought about possibly looking at backer. I thought about looking at corner. But I think what I'm going to do, and it's a guy that I thought you were going to draft earlier, and I'm going to give Geno Smith another weapon here, and I'm going to draft Jackson Smith.
You're killing the Chargers right now. You're just killing the Chargers right now. And I love it as a Raiders fan, but you are just killing the Chargers right now.
This pick, so I'm going to butcher his last name. Can I get a quick go ahead, because you said it pretty good earlier.
Jackson Smith and Jigba is how I believe it is pronounced, out of Ohio State.
In Jigba, right? This kid can play anywhere on the field. Putting him inside and having Lockett on one side and DK Metcalf on the other and having Kenneth Walker in the backfield, you are giving Geno Smith 4 guys who could take the ball to the house on one play. These are home run hitters. But what Jackson Smith gives you is a receiver that could run any route you ask him. He does have some injury concerns because of what he's coming off of from Ohio State. But adding him in this wide receiver group, I mean, if Seattle's looking to contend, you just grab Tyree Wilson earlier in the first, and then you're grabbing to me, the best receiver in this draft at 20, I'm happy. So you are now on the clock at 21 with your beloved Los Angeles Chargers that you're just so excited that everyone is drafting in front of. What I'm wondering if you're going to take a possible pick that I was speaking about, how close they were with another man that was already drafted or selected in this draft. And if that's the case, they'd end up getting the piece that they are missing, possibly to replace one of their other weapons. So, without further ado, the Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock. Where is this? Mic malfunction. Might have lost Rob. We're having a little bit of malfunctions now that we're back here, but until Rob is ready, we'll hit a little relap. We'll recap everything that just currently happened. So we have Bryce Young 1 going to the Carolina Panthers. Houston selecting Will Anderson at 2, and then Nolan Smith at 12. Arizona trades their pick to New England, who draft Will Levis. C.J. Stroud is an Indianapolis Colt. Seattle drafts Tyree Wilson, defensive end, out of Texas Tech, and receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State at 20. Then at 6, we have Detroit selecting Jalen Carter, defensive tackle, out of Georgia. And then we also have them turning around and drafting Kelee Ringo, corner, out of Georgia, at 18. Seems like a lot of Georgia boys getting drafted here. At 7, we got the Raiders selecting Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. At 8, Atlanta follows suit at the cornerback position, drafting Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois. At 9, the Chicago Bears get a chess piece, big boy, left tackle, Paris Johnson out of Ohio State. 10, Philadelphia trades their pick to Tampa for Devin White. Tampa Bay goes on and selects quarterback Anthony Richardson out of Florida. Titans select Peter Skoronski, guard, out of Northwestern. We have Nolan Smith, I already said. Dalton Kincaid goes to the Green Bay Packers, tight end out of Utah. Lucas Van Ness replaces J.J. Watt in a new Jonathan Gannon system after trading down 11 picks in Arizona. Broderick Jones is the new right tackle to go with Vera Tucker and Mekhi Becton on that New York Jets front line. We have 16. The Commanders drafting cornerback Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. 18, we have Kelee Ringo, which I said. 19, Philadelphia moves back with Tampa earlier in the draft, and then they are still able to draft running back Bijan Robinson out of Texas. And then at 20, we had Jackson Smith-Njigba going to Seattle, as I mentioned earlier. At 21, we're waiting. Rob, we got a thumbs up. All right, so we still have no Rob. While we are waiting on Rob now, we've gone through one of the biggest needs on this Chargers team could possibly be running back, which is interesting because you do have Austin Ekeler, and Austin Ekeler is one hell of a back, but he wants to get paid, and it seems like the Chargers aren't going to pay him. I highly doubt that they're going to allow him to walk, so he's probably going to end up being traded at some point. But besides that running back spot, you are looking at wide receiver, tight end, defensive line help, safety, corner. Looking at what is left, Myles Murphy, out of Clemson makes a lot of sense if they were to go defense here. You still have Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama, at 21. It's not far-fetched for them to draft there. I think if he was in the top 15, it would have been far-fetched, only because he's one of the only safeties, and I don't think that he's a game-changing safety, but he is a very good safety. So 21 makes a lot of sense. You could also look at staying on the West Coast and drafting a guy like Jordan Addison, receiver from USC. You could look at getting a guy like Zay Flowers, who could run any route that you want to throw at him, from Boston College, who also was working out with Patrick Mahomes, so might be interested in stealing that before he gets down to 31 possibly. You also have the big boy Quentin Johnson, who, I mean, is he the next coming of Calvin? Everything he did at TCU, we've seen a couple guys translate from TCU into the NFL, and it didn't work out. One guy that did work out from TCU would have been LaDainian Tomlinson, who was drafted by the Chargers. So maybe they take another shot on a TCU boy here. There's also options on Brian Brees, defensive tackle from Clemson, who's probably going to fall a little bit later, but Brees is also a guy that they could be possibly looking at that could get swung out to the edge that would make him possibly a higher draft choice. But it does sound like we have Rob back. So at 21, your Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock, sir.
So I was waving this back and forth because, as I stated, they also need an interior lineman.
Yes.
But I think they are going to go ahead, and all I know is they really like to throw a nice deep ball with that blonde-haired quarterback they got back there. And the best vertical route runner, pass catcher in this draft is big boy wide receiver Quentin Johnson, TCU.
Now, I hit on that while you're away. Quentin Johnson makes a lot of sense here. If you look at TCU, one of the guys that actually did benefit from going from TCU to the Chargers that actually had a good NFL career is LaDainian Tomlinson. You take a you take a little bit more recent of a guy who's gone from TCU to the NFL, who didn't have much success in Jalen Reagor. You're hoping you hit here. Now, let me just let you you Chargers fans know, I'm pretty sure this is the same exact spot in the draft 2 years ago that Jalen Reagor was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, who then in pick number 22, Justin Jefferson went. So, Rob, are you setting these boys up real quick? Because the Baltimore Ravens are on the clock.
No, Steve, what I did is instead of drafting the small, fast guy, Jordan Addison, Jay Flowers, Josh Downs, I went with the Justin Jefferson prototype, 6'3", 215, can run over the top, averaged almost 19 yards a catch in college, the big play guy. I did the opposite of what the Eagles did.
All right.
See, I watched your team draft crappy at wide receiver for a lot of the times, and I'm a Raiders fan. So if anybody knows what not to draft in a wide receiver, I think I am a professional on the topic. Just look at the Raiders draft history for the last 2 decades. Any wide receiver we took, draft something not like that.
Okay, so 22. I'm excited here. I'm really excited. I wasn't going to do this at first.
This is a good pick.
This Baltimore Ravens team. You want to take a guess on where I'm going?
I don't know. It's Baltimore. You want a tight end?
No, I want a quarterback, and his name is Hayden Hooker, because I'm going to allow Lamar Jackson to be going.
Hooker?
Hendon Hooker is going to be my quarterback of the future because he fell into the 20s. He's coming off an ACL tear. If Lamar Jackson's going to play this season out, let him play this season out, and then let him go. I got the quarterback of the future at 22.
Jeez, that's a reach and a half. But Minnesota appreciates you. I'll let you know. So the Vikings on the clock now, they could use a guard, they could use an edge rusher, like, just about everybody in the draft, and they could use a corner. What I think they're going to do here is they've got to improve that defense from last year. It was atrocious, and that's basically being nice about how bad their defense played last year. So I think they are going to go with a corner out of Penn State University, Mr. Joey Porter Jr.
Love the pick. Absolutely love the pick. I was hoping he would have somehow fell to Philadelphia here at 30, and he goes to the Purple People Eaters.
I think they'd be real happy if they're getting him at 23.
At 24, I know a team that's going to be real happy with these Jacksonville Jaguars because, they went and they drafted a guy last year at the edge rush position, but we're going to go ahead and add another one. But we're going to add one from Clemson. We're going to add Myles Murphy, Mr. Small Hands, to get on this.
Mr. Small Hands is still a big boy.
Myles Murphy, the only reason he's here at 24 is because his hands were measurably small. If it wasn't for that, Myles Murphy probably wouldn't be here at 24. I think the Jaguars are getting a very good player. He knows how to get after the quarterback. I love the chance. Anytime I get to get Jacksonville more defensive help because they like drafting guys and letting them walk after 5 years to even better teams. So the Jaguars got somebody who's going to get paid on the open market 5 years from now.
Yeah, I do believe that is correct. So I'm up here with the New York Giants at 25. Well, you paid Danny Dimes his money, but he needs weapons, and they are going to get him the best available weapon left in this draft, and that's wide receiver Zay Flowers out of Boston College. This is a kid with elite separation skills. He's going to be very hard to cover across routes, especially in man coverage, even at the NFL level. I think he's a guy who has the potential to be an amazing weapon, and he could definitely do some work for them in the slot and give Danny Dimes some easy completions, which he so desperately needs.
Boy, I don't want to see Zay Flowers. I don't. I really don't. But
I know.
I like this pick here for them to make them a stronger offense. I'm just hoping Danny Dimes could actually get Zay Flowers the ball. If he can't get him the ball, then I'm not worried about it. So
he absolutely cannot, but that's besides the point.
I'm now on the clock with, my favorite.
Dallas Cowgirls.
My favorite. Okay, so I had conversations about them taking Bijan Robinson if he was to fall, and maybe they would move up and go grab Bijan Robinson. There's definitely that kind of possibility here. Running back is a need for them. With Tony Pollard being on a 1 year deal, having the injury that he had, is he going to be able to come back and do exactly what he was doing beforehand? Now that there is no other back there as Ezekiel Elliott was in the past, they do need defensive tackles. They also need a right guard. Osiris would make a lot of sense here from Florida.
Yes, it would.
But knowing Jerry Jones and knowing that he wants flashy, and Jerry Jones doesn't care what it costs to be flashy, I'm going to do something that every Eagles fan will hate. The Dallas Cowboys are going to draft Jahmyr Gibbs, running back out of Alabama.
It's a position in need. He's flashy. He's a home run hitter, so it's like you said, it's everything Jerry loves. So I could 100% see them doing this if they're not able to get their hands on Bijan, or if they don't want to move up for Bijan, and they're high enough on Gibbs that they think they could stay where they're at and get him. So I think it fills a need. Dak needs a good run game. So I agree with the pick. Now I am sitting here at 27 on the clock with the Buffalo Bills. They could use an offensive guard. They could use a defensive tackle because their young stud defensive tackle is a free agent after this season. And, you could always get Josh Allen another weapon. But with the weapons that I like the most being off the board, I don't think they're going to go there. So what I think they do is they shore up the offensive line and they go Osiris Torrance, guard from Florida.
I like the pick. I really do like the pick. Now, I'm jumping ahead here. When we get to 31, we're gonna have a conversation if this guy's on the board, because I know you're not gonna want him to go there. But I do like Osiris here. I debated about taking him at 26, but you know, when we get to 31 with your beloved Kansas City Chiefs, I want to have a conversation before that pick gets taken. The Bengals here at 28. Man. Bengals have done everything they possibly can to give Joe Burrow an offensive line, and they actually lost some pieces on the defense. And again, this is something that I wanted possibly for him to be there for the Eagles. But I'm going to take him here. I'm going to take Brian Branch, pick 28 from Alabama, going to the Cincinnati Bengals.
All right. That's a good pick for them. They definitely need to replace some guys on that side of the ball, so it's something we could see happening for sure.
Like I said, I'm a little upset that I had to make the pick. I feel like it's the right choice to make the correct pick, not the pick that I want to help the Eagles here. And you know, this kid, they have him comped to Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's the best safety in this draft. He could possibly be the best DB in this draft. So he could fill in for Jesse Bates with no issue in the future. Right now, he's going to be a guy who you're going to have to watch grow. But Brian Branch is definitely going to be a Pro Bowl caliber safety in this league at 28 to Cincinnati.
I agree, man. So now I'm sitting here 29 with the New Orleans Saints. They could use edge. They could use a defensive tackle because their line was not very good last year. They could definitely use another complementary weapon to go with them, Lave and those boys. But with this gentleman still being on the board, don't think that I can pass him up again. And that's going to be a guy who can play inside and, like you said, possibly outside. And that's going to be Brian Bresee from Clemson.
I love the pick. This kid has so much upside. I actually like the idea of moving him more to being a edge rusher. I think that he is a little undersized when you look at him.
Agree.
Not hitting that 300 mark. But he's a little bit slower, which does bring a little bit of an issue when moving him to the outside. You know, he runs, I think it's like a 4.8, 4.9, something along them lines. But he does
it's in there.
He does have decently long arms. He did have a really good career at Clemson. He did play alongside Myles Murphy, but you're coming here and you're going to now play with Cam Jordan, who does make your life a little bit easier when you're playing and you're a little bit undersized, which I think that's you're going to start seeing in the NFL. Defensive tackles are going to start getting smaller, faster, getting able to not stop the run, but to be there to bring pressure on every down, because it is now a pass-happy league. No longer let's give the ball to the running back 300 times. Now, me saying that, I have two running backs going in the first round, both in the same division. But, you know, it's interesting. So here at pick 30, I do have the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I did run something through you earlier before we actually ended up doing this mock draft. I said if he wasn't here, I was going to make an offer here. Now, you get to take this offer, or you get to tell me to go screw myself, because you are Arizona. I'm interested.
I am.
I'm interested in trading 30 to Arizona for Budda Baker, who's expressed interest in playing in Philadelphia, who does not want to be in Arizona, who wants a contract extension. Howie Roseman will figure out how to get it under the cap, because he just gave my quarterback $65 million the first year, and his cap hit's only $6 million. So if there's anything that I could do here, I want to be able to try to possibly take this pick here, and only this pick, and go get somebody who is on an expiring contract. Arizona, are you interested in trading me your pick?
I think Arizona would be. Budda Baker has like you just said, publicly stated he has zero want to be there, and he's going to leave after the season. So why not get something back for him? You can go ahead and fill another need here. So the Arizona Cardinals will take that trade and jump onto the clock at number 20.
30.
30, whatever. Now, they did take a pass rusher in Luke Van Ness earlier. They can use interior line help. They can use corner help. Interior line, you still got interesting names like John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota. Can play center, could definitely move out to guard if he had to. Corner has been kind of ravaged, but it is deep in this draft. So they are going to go cornerback Deonte Banks out of Maryland, who I think is an absolute steal at number 30.
I like the pick. We definitely had a conversation about how deep this cornerback draft is.
It's absolutely crazy. There's still talented guys on the board.
Yeah, there's at least 3 guys I'm looking at that could possibly be first-round picks if there was that many to go in the first round. Deonte Banks is a guy that is going to be closer towards the top. When he runs a 4.3. He's smaller compared to the other corners in this draft. I think that's one thing that does hurt him. Where these other corners in this draft are 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", and then you go and you look at Deonte Banks, who is only 6 foot. That 1, 2, 3 inches does make a difference, especially when you start looking at the arm length. His arm length is he isn't at the top compared to the 3-4 guys that were drafted ahead of him. And being a little bit smaller, he does run the 4.3, like I said, the 4.35. He played at a smaller school in quotations in Maryland. But the one thing is with him, he tends to lose his receiver when quarterbacks scramble. So I feel like that's one of the reasons why he ended up falling to this spot. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. I think Deonte Banks is going to have a phenomenal career, and putting him in a team like the Cardinals with Jonathan Gannon, who, like I said earlier, when you decided to take Luke Van Ness, he's going to pin his ears back and tell these guys to go get the quarterback. If Deonte Banks could keep his eyes on the quarterback, if he could keep his eyes on the ball and not get lost when the running back or quarterback starts scrambling, he is going to have a fine career. So I do like this pick with Arizona.
His measurables, speed, vertical, broad jump, all of it at the combine were off the charts. He had pretty good tape in college. Good man coverage guy, like you said. He did have some lackadaisical moments with scrambling quarterbacks, but I think that can be coached, especially at the pro level. So that's why they went here. And now we're at the pick that you said you wanted to talk about. We got the fucking Kansas City Chiefs at 31.
Yeah, because the Kansas City Chiefs allowed somebody to leave in the offseason, right? They allowed Juju Smith to walk. So I'm telling you what we're doing here. We're taking Jalen Hyatt because that makes the most sense as Kansas City. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
What are you taking? You're not taking a kid who's 6 foot who runs a 4.4.
I mean, you could.
Who? His comparison is Deshaun Jackson. He is exactly what Andy Reid wants in Kansas City. A guy who could just go get a deep ball. That's it. Nothing else. You don't need to run routes. Just know how to run a fly route. You can run a fly route. You're fine in Kansas City. But what do we got here?
But that is not the offense that they ran last year.
But you were on the clock,
the offense
so I
that
have
they
to
ran
allow
last
you.
year that won them a Super Bowl was short throws turned into long gains, and they have a real running back now in Isaiah Pacheco that Andy Reid does want to get the ball, and he has multiple times. But I'm not saying we're not drafting some speed now, because we are drafting a speed receiver. He just, to me, is going to be a slot specialist that this team and Andy Reid will be able to use like no other in pairing with Travis Kelce. That is Josh Downs from North Carolina.
Yes. No Jordan Addison there. No Jordan Addison.
Josh Downs from North.
No, I do like the pick. I was trying to get Jalen Wiley off the board. We did have a discussion. Josh Downs is probably the fourth best receiver in this draft. Right behind Flowers, Jason Smith, and Quentin Johnson. You could throw Addison into the conversation. You could throw Hyatt into the conversation with Downs. I also like Hyatt's teammate Tillman just as much. So this makes the most sense Kansas City wise because Josh Downs is a guy who can get physical.
I think he has the speed and ball skills that are a little bit like his speed. Obviously, those guys all have speed, but his ball skills and ability to make stuff happen after the catch, to me, is a little bit higher than some of these guys. And I think Andy Reid has fallen in love with that. I mean, he always has loved the screen game, besides going over the top. So I think that he could go for a guy like that, especially at 31.
One interesting point with Josh Downs is there has been comparisons to Tooney. So you give him two Toonies. I
mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's not okay. And it's not okay that he's got 6 options for another Kadarius Toney when he already has a Kadarius Toney. It's ridiculous.
So we are done our mock draft. We did have Arizona making a few trades here. Arizona made 2 trades. They traded back and then traded back from 3 to 14, and then they ended up trading up to 30. Technically, they didn't even trade up. They traded expiring contract in Budda Baker, which now everyone sees why New England had thrown Jabril Peppers into the deal with Arizona earlier into the draft. Jabril Peppers, it gives them the replacement for Budda Baker.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're a Philadelphia fan, you listen to this mock draft, or even if you're not a Philadelphia fan, you're saying I'm a homer because I ended up walking away with Devin White, Budda Baker, and Bijan Robinson. Let me tell you.
The problem is that you guys have the capital to do that.
There is an actual chance this happens. I'm not going to tell you cry on Thursday night at 1 o'clock in the morning if it doesn't happen. But knowing how Howie operates, there is a chance that this... You might not walk away with all 3, but you could walk away with 2 of the 3. You could walk away with 1 of the 3. You could honestly... I'll make the conversation right now. You could see Philadelphia trading up to 6 if... Seattle passes on Jalen Carter. Philly could take 10 and 30 and say, we want Jalen Carter. And then you go and you get Jalen Carter. You got rid of both your first-round picks. Now you don't get any one of the 3 guys I just talked about from a number 1 choice. And you're going to get Jalen Carter to match with his ex-teammate in Jordan Davis. And now you have 2 big freaks in the front line. So there's definitely possibilities here. You could still see Devin White in Philadelphia. You could still see Budda Baker in Philadelphia if they were to move them picks for Jalen Carter. Like I said, there's capital not just this year. Everyone's looking at the Philadelphia Eagles and they're saying, oh, they got 6-7 draft picks this year, and it's 2 firsts and then it's 4 mid-level picks. We really don't have much this year, but next year we're sitting on 12 picks before comp picks.
Yeah, the Eagles have a ton of capital to mess around in this draft if they want to. For the Raiders, I'm happy. Just sit there at 7. Get Christian Gonzalez or Witherspoon, because I think even though you did have Detroit take Carter, they could easily take one of those corners. They desperately need corner help. And that's just going to depend on whether, like you stated earlier, they think they can get Jalen Carter to, not screw off the field.
But see, that's the conversation. That's the conversation we had earlier about how deep this cornerback draft is, right? We talked about
it's crazy.
There's 8-9 corners that could go in this draft, right? So a team like Detroit, this is what went into my mind when I made this selection with Jalen Carter. A team like Detroit that does have multiple holes on this defense, having 2 first-round choices, you could take the best available player, which is Jalen Carter, not just at 6. Him and Bijan Robinson are 1 and 2, respectively. Right? It's them 2, but nobody's going to take...
Pretty much, yeah.
No one's going to take an interior defensive lineman.
You could throw Anderson into that mix, but those are the top 3 guys, talent-wise, in this draft.
Right, and no one's going to take a defensive tackle or an interior lineman who has off-field issues in the top 2. Even if he didn't have off-field issues, you're not taking him 1 or 2. So
I think he's fallen out of the top 5 myself personally. I just don't know if after that point, it's like any of those teams could almost use him.
So it just made sense at 6 because you're still able.
Somebody's taking him between 6 and 10.
Right. He's not. That's why he won't. That's why he didn't do any interviews after 10 because he knows he's not dropping past 10 because there's no way.
Too talented.
If he's there at 10, even if Philadelphia trades back, whoever's trading up to 10 is taking him.
Yeah. But again, I don't see him getting past Detroit, who needs a tackle, Las Vegas, who needs a tackle, Chicago, who needs a tackle. If Philly's still at 10, Philly needs a tackle. Like, there's just too many people that could use his talent on their roster that would definitely be willing. Because if they can just keep that kid out of trouble, he can be so good.
I mean, you could also have the conversation that D'Amico Ryans could say, look, I know how to talk to these boys. Like, I know how to get my guys to believe in me, and I could keep them out of trouble. And you could see Houston.
Oh, 100%.
You could see Houston going, okay, cool. We believe in you, D'Amico Ryans, because we know what you can do with players. And then Houston going, you know what, at 2, we're taking Jalen Carter because swinging back around at 12, we could get an edge rusher to go with him. So instead of taking Will Anderson and Nolan Smith like I did, you could get Jalen Carter at 2 and then Nolan Smith at 12. And
I 100% agree because edge rusher, much like corner,
right,
is so deep in this draft. It's crazy.
But
another position that's deep in this draft that we really didn't draft any of is tight end.
Yeah, tight end I always feel like is a weird spot in the first round. You do get the 1 or 2 guys that end up going. Michael Mayer is a guy that out of Notre Dame who everyone is in love with. I don't know how great his game is going to transition into the NFL. To me personally, every game that I watched from Notre Dame, I wasn't blown away. But then again, Notre Dame wasn't that great of a team this year. But breaking down tight ends, you do have a few tight ends. Let me pull up these tight ends really quick. You do have a few tight ends that are decent.
You got Sam Laporte out of Iowa. He's another big one. Quick kid. He's going to fall a bit because his tape this year is going to be horrible because Iowa's offense was absolutely horrible. So
who
wasn't much he could do.
Who is the big kid? The 6'7" monster.
Yeah. So he was also somebody I was considering Andy Reid looking at 31. That would be Darnell Washington out of Georgia. He is 6'7", 270 pounds. He is essentially an extra tackle when he's on the field.
And didn't he run like a 4.6?
Except he can run routes and break tackles when he catches the ball. It's insane.
Yeah, so...
Oh, yeah, his combine was ridiculous.
There's definitely options.
He's not quite as polished as guys like Mayer, Kincaid, Laporte. Honorable mention, Luke Musgrave, Oregon State. He was hurt basically this whole year. I'm not sure how polished he is, but he is a heck of an athlete at the tight end position. Like the teams that need tight end, they're gonna have a few guys to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like we did the...
I'll take one of them in the second round to replace Darren Waller.
I feel like we did a good job of not being homers and actually taking picks that benefited teams that were in the spots to select.
Yeah, I do too, and especially because we didn't actually talk about what we were picking except for the first 3. So we had a semblance of what was going on.
Correct, and I feel like we did. And we definitely kept a good pace here. We knew exactly what we were getting to, which was nice. I know last year we kind of had a little bit of a, let's have a 20-minute conversation about this player or what am I going to do because this player's gone. I feel like we were a little bit more ready. I know everyone out there that's listening is a lot more excited that we didn't hear. Yeah. So I definitely worked on my speech. So
I mean, we next year, if you want, guys, we'll just go like full Mel Kiper. It's gonna be 30 seconds of a rant, and that's all you're gonna get every pick.
Right. We could do all 7 rounds next year. Who knows?
Jalen Carter not going to fall out of the first round. Too talented, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, back to Jalen Carter really quick before we end up ending this podcast for the night. There is conversations that Jalen Carter could fall all the way to 30. So if that happens, if Jalen Carter is sitting there after the teens, there's a team. There's a team moving up. There's a team giving away everything they have in the future. There's no way you allow. There's no way you allow this kind of talent to walk, or not really walk, to go by your team. There is questions. There's a lot of questions. Not only what happened in the race that he had with his friend, and his friend passed away. We all do stupid shit when we were younger. I mean, you could be held accountable, but it's something that, honestly, you really didn't have much control of. It's not like you crashed into him, from my understanding. You guys were racing.
It's just, why are you putting yourself in that situation in the first place is more the question.
You put yourself in a situation, and that's really what's being questioned right now. And, like I said, we all do stupid shit. We all deserve second chances in life. But the issue right now is that everything that's coming out is that you took practices off. You didn't go to classes because you didn't feel like you needed to be in class. You took plays off because you thought you were the best player on the field. When you start having that kind of conversation, and you also, not only that, you didn't show up to the combine and then you were 9 pounds overweight at your pro day. There's more than just what happened off the field. And that's what scares me even at 6, even at 7, even at 30.
I think his intangibles and how bad they've been is why teams are talking about passing on him. He has, and this is going to kill people that are fans of this kid, and don't get me wrong, I hope he is not this way, but personality-wise, he reminds me of Jamarcus Russell. And I think that's all I need to say about that.
Yeah.
He's got a bad work ethic. He thinks he's better than everybody, which he's going to get humbled real quick at the NFL level, because that's not how it works. And if he can't learn to get a work ethic and be coachable and put effort in, he is not going to be long for the NFL.
That's why that's one of the reasons why I picked him at 6. Honestly, I feel like that. I said it when I drafted him. I've said it multiple times since we finished our mock. Jalen Carter gets Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell gets Jalen Carter. Detroit gets Jalen Carter. You're not putting.
I think it's a good fit. I just don't know if the conversations really are what they are around the league about teams not wanting him. If you're Detroit and you want him, you don't draft him at 6. If you think he's going to fall, like they're saying he might fall,
you draft him at 18.
You wait. You pick him at 18.
Yeah, but
I don't know if he gets there, but
more than likely not. But that's why I gave him. So what I'm trying to do when I took Jalen Carter here at 6 was give him that second opportunity that one of the only head coaches in the top 10 would give him. I think going to a I keep calling it a smaller market, but if he goes to Philadelphia, could you imagine what it would be like for him day in and day out until everything is settled? All the questions he'd have to answer on a daily. It just doesn't make sense for him to go to a bigger, I don't want to keep saying bigger, because Detroit is, they got good fans. So it's not like the media.
Oh, 100%.
The media is different.
You know, dude, the East Coast, New York, Philly, that media is so much rougher than anywhere else, though.
You put him in Detroit, Dan Campbell's going to get him saying everything that he's supposed to be saying and get him ready to play. Dan Campbell does not play. So, I mean,
no, he does not.
To me, that's the mold. That's the fit. I'm sticking with Detroit. I know we talked to my buddy Rich right before the draft. He wants Jalen Carter at 9 in Chicago. I think if the incident didn't happen and there wasn't a bunch of stories coming out about all of his off-field issues, you might have seen Chicago stay at 1 and take Jalen Carter. Honestly, because
100%.
He's that good.
Yep. I think that's why they moved off that pick, is because they moved off him being a top 5 pick. Because, and I agree, you can't, top 5, heck, even top 10 to me, it's tough to pick a guy up that has some sort of glaring issue. Whether it's in his play or personality, it doesn't matter. If they got a glaring issue, it's not really a guy you're looking for in the top 10.
Yeah, no, I agree. But with that, we're going to shut it down. Philly Frenzy Podcast. Hey, shutting it down. Hopefully, it's not shut down for a few months, but we're gonna shut down. I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna post these and possibly make a graphic for you guys. We will then drop this on YouTube as we are live on Twitch. But this will be on YouTube. Go give us a follow, Philly Frenzy Podcast. Rob, I want to thank you for coming on tonight, doing this again, because it's been a while. So, it's like
I said in the beginning, man, I'm happy to be back. I think we both love doing this. I don't care if there's one person watching or 1 million. I enjoy doing it. So I'm always going to be down to keep it going.
As you guys could tell earlier, my daughter gets excited. So that the first half hour of this stream is a bunch of yelling, and there's not much I can do about that. But just hoping in the future.
And there's yelling at the draft too,
yeah, she just got excited. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and I'm just going to edit her screaming to where it's only after picks, so you guys get that feeling that she's so excited after every pick.
Oh my god!
That it's even better than what you're going to watch on Thursday night. But until next time, it's Philly Frenzy out.